Well, joining me to talk more about women in the workplace in China is Margaret Woo. She's a professor of law and associate dean for Research and Interdisciplinary Education at Northeastern University's School of Law. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
So how does hidden gender discrimination tend to show itself in China's job market?
It's interesting that you said hidden because actually some of the discriminatory practices are not so hidden. I think some of the more egregious practices were blatant advertisements for jobs where they specify for men only. But if you're looking for hidden discriminatory practices, there are a number of practices that fly within the radar screen. For example, every job application has to be submitted with a photo. And oftentimes women are judged a little harsher than men in terms of their physical appearance.
Now, in terms of the blatant discrimination, according to Bloomberg, two of China's biggest job sites, Liepin and Jiaopin, have thousands of listings, especially from tech companies, suggesting bias based on appearance, gender, or age. You mentioned men, and sometimes asking employees to be good-looking. So how does one effectively enforce these gender discrimination rules?
Well, that's a terrific question. I mean, I think in part it would require, of course, education to let employers know that this is a problem, that is a violation of women's rights in so many parts of China. I think that companies are just blatantly unaware that this could be a problem. But more importantly, we have to also encourage women to speak up. And part of the problem really is that the resources are slim, both in terms of the government's ability to enforce and the resources of women to find the legal aid to assist with their claims.
So is this an issue that we see across all industries, or do some sectors see higher gender discrimination rates than others?
Well, you know, like also in the US, and I think in many parts of the world, the STEM area, science, technology, is notoriously discriminatory. I think just about a couple of months ago, a professor in one of the leading universities in China actually made a comment that women really don't belong, aren't suited to the academy. And so for those fields, it's very difficult for women. They have to be better, they have to score higher, right, in order to kind of break the doors down.
Now, we know that China does want to encourage women to have more children, for families to have more children, but how prepared is the government and employers to provide the sort of infrastructure to support the needs of working mothers?
That's another great question. And you know, the Chinese actually have pretty good daycare in their educational system. But more is needed, of course, and workplace daycare is also needed, because primary schools and elementary schools, they really don't start until a child is 2.5 or 3. And so what you really want is to make sure that employers, workplaces also provide for suitable daycare and flexible hours. And unfortunately, since privatization, actually, a lot of that is now not required, and they're encouraged, but it's far, far lacking.
And just quickly, if there were any examples you can point to of other countries that are doing a good job narrowing the gender gap, who would they be?
You know, people always point to the Scandinavian countries, and of course, the population is very different size of the population between China and Scandinavian countries and the US. But Scandinavian countries with their vibrant economy really gives very, very generous benefits in terms of very long maternity leaves and guarantees of jobs when they come back. The US actually isn't bad either. The US has a EEOC, as you know, that is particularly focused on discriminatory practices in the workplace, and the Chinese government might want to consider doing that. They're very overtasked at this point.
Margaret Woo there, Professor of Law and Associate Dean for Research and Interdisciplinary Education at Northeastern University's School of Law. Thanks so much.